So who makes it into the worst Championship 11 of this season? Let's talk about it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel now. Soon I will be doing my Championship team of the season, but before we go ahead and dive into that, I thought we'd go through the worst 11 Championship players of the season. Obviously this video is just for a little bit of fun, but I would like to get your thoughts on this one down below. Who from your club do you think would be an honourable mention into this side? As always though, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Without any further ado though, let's jump into the worst 11. Starting out in goal, I'm going to go for Sheffield United's Robin Olsen, obviously no longer at the club but on loan there in the first half of the season, and we've seen since Olsen has been out of that side how much they've actually improved their defensive record. Olsen came with a little bit of a reputation as well, and it was quite surprising to see just how much he actually struggled in that setup. Now obviously circumstances have changed at Sheffield United with them getting a defensive record. You know, it's not just the fact that Fotheringham has come in, but dropped several clangers throughout the season, looked quite nervous to be honest. I think that nervous energy sort of breathed out into the back line ahead of him. I remember going to Ramel Lane earlier on in the season and he was absolutely all over the place against Preston. Another honourable mention for the goalkeeper spot though, probably Peterborough United's David Cornell. Not great this season either. In terms of save percentage for the season, Robin Olsen ranks 42nd out of all the Championship goalkeepers that have played this season. David Cornell even worse, 44th for save percentage, with a save percentage of just 60%. I don't think that Peterborough have exactly been blessed throughout the season with goalkeepers, to be honest, but I am going to give Robin Olsen the nod as the worst goalkeeper this season. I'm going to go for a back three in my team, and as my first centre half, I'm going to go for Peterborough United's Mark Beavers. I had to throw at least one Peterborough defender into this team here, with them having by far and away the worst defensive record in the league, having conceded 76 goals this season. And to be honest, I could have thrown absolutely anyone from Peterborough in here, but I think that Beavers especially has struggled to make that step back up from League One. He's a towering centre half who's about 6'5", who to be honest doesn't even win that many aerial battles. His numbers in that regard have seriously dropped off from League One last season. 5.3 aerial duels per 90 he was winning last season compared to just 1.9 this season. He's the experienced guy in that back line as well, and so ultimately it falls upon him to set the standard. That's just not been the case this season. Knight was another one who I could have thrown in here, but I think that his performances have improved slightly in the new year. Next to him in the back three, I'm going to go for Barnsley's Jasper Moon. I feel a little bit bad for chucking him in there because he's only a 21-year-old defender who's been thrust into this Barnsley side and at times has just looked like a little bit of a deer in the headlights, to be honest. He had that awful moment against Coventry when he was brought on late into the game to sort of see it out in terms of a 0-0 result. In the end, he makes the mistake and Coventry end up winning that game 1-0. And there have been quite a few sort of lapses in concentration from Moon. It just seems like he's not yet up to this level. As my final centre half in the back three, I'm going to go for Bristol City's Zach Weiner. Now, in years gone by, I've always had quite high hopes for Zach Weiner and how he sort of progressed through the ranks at Bristol City. Quite a versatile player in terms of, you know, he can play centre half, full back into midfield as well. But this season especially, I think his progress has really slumped, if I'm being honest. Bristol City have had a pretty woeful defensive record this season, having conceded 69 goals already. And for whatever reason, it just seems as if Weiner's gone backwards this season for Bristol City. On the left-hand side of my team, I'm going to go for West Brom's Grady Diangana. I think that in terms of expectations matched with what he's produced so far this season, there's probably the biggest discrepancy with Diangana this season. Obviously, he didn't have his greatest season last time round in the Premier League, but I think that that applies to pretty much the whole of that West Brom side. Last time we saw Diangana in the Championship, this guy was electric in a bottle. He was absolute gold dust. Probably one of, if not the best dribblers in the league that season. And this season has just been such a regression for Diangana, which is such a shame really. I don't think that he was a great fit into the Ishmael system in terms of style of play and things like that. He certainly didn't get the best out of him. His goal tally has been massively cut from the last time he was playing in the Championship, but what's most worrying is his creative numbers have absolutely fallen off a cliff. Last time he was in the Championship, he was averaging around 2.5 dribbles per 90. This season, he's not even averaging 1 dribble per 90. Key passes, shots per game, fouls drawn have all severely gone down for Diangana this season in what has been, for me, a really disappointing year. In off the right hand side, I'm going to go for Preston North End Scott Sinclair. I think that this has been one of the sharpest declines we've seen of a Championship player for quite some time. Last season, Scott Sinclair was our top scorer in the Championship with 9 goals, and this season he's been such a far cry away from that player he used to be. Okay, he's not been massively fancied by either of the managers we've had so far this season, but he's had 6 starts and 16 appearances off the bench, has no goal contributions to show for it, and even in the games that he has been given a chance, seems so sort of static and out of place with the rest of the squad. And I think considering the wage that he's on and what he's actually brought to this North End side this year, which is virtually 0, I think I have to throw him into this team on the right hand side. As my first central midfielder, I'm going to go for Cardiff's Leandro Bakuna, who's been pretty woeful this season for Cardiff. He's not actually played since December when he was sent off for that awful tackle against Bournemouth, and so he's just pretty much been wasting away since that. But his performances leading up to that Bournemouth red card were pretty woeful as well, to be honest. I think his contract's running out with Cardiff at the end of the season, and I'd be amazed if he's still in the Championship next season. Next to him in central midfield and coming in as Barnsley's second entry onto today's list, I'm going to go for Ramel Palmer, who I think's had a real disaster of a season so far. I think he himself has spoken about his confidence being quite low at the moment, and it has certainly come across on the pitch that way. Another player in the Barnsley squad who has seriously regressed from last season. In terms of a holding midfielder, he's got one of the worst pass completion rates in the league at just 66%. And apart from being a yellow card magnet for a lot of the season, he's not really offered a lot else. Now I've gone for a front 3 in my team, and as my first forward I've gone for Coventry's Martin Waghorn. At the start of the season there was the feeling that Waghorn was a decent facilitator for Gyökeres and the goals that he was scoring, but after that initial month or so with Coventry, the goals quickly dried up. Not like they were ever really there for Waghorn, to be honest, but the performances as well have seriously taken a lull up until this point, where I think he's at the point of frustration with quite a lot of Coventry fans at this point. In terms of Championship strikers who have taken at least 30 shots this season, Waghorn has been statistically the least clinical striker in the Championship this season, with a conversion rate of just 2.9%, which is abysmally bad. I think as well, considering what Waghorn was expected to contribute to this Coventry side this season, it's just not worked out. Next to him, we're going to go for one of the other least clinical strikers in the Championship, that being Sheffield United's Ollie Mcburn. Now, to be fair to him, in his most recent cameo appearance off the bench against Barnsley, did actually get a decent assist in that game, but if we're going off performances prior to that, McBurney's just not delivered in a way that I think a lot of people thought he might this season. The move in the first place hadn't exactly gone to plan, with him struggling at times to adapt to Premier League football, but we've seen what McBurney can do at this level in the past. You know, he's hit over 20 goals for Swansea in the Championship, but this season's been quite a far cry away from that. He's played 25 matches for Sheffield United this season and he's still yet to hit the back of the net. And then to finish off today's starting 11, I'm going to go for Reading's George Puskas. He's currently out on loan to Pisa, where coincidentally he's actually started to find a little bit of form, which is typical, right? But Reading were really left with not much of a choice for the first portion of the season. They had to just persist with Puskas up front because they literally didn't have any other options at that time. You know, they took a little bit of time to get that Andy Carroll deal over the line. Lucas João wasn't fit. Yaku Mete was still recovering from his injury. So George Puskas was just thrown into that 11 week in, week out, and he really didn't deliver on any sense. 25 Championship appearances this season and just 1 goal to show for it all. It's a transfer which just hasn't worked out after all the initial hype as well, and how he sort of burst onto the scene with his first couple of performances for Reading. This season was just a little bit of a horror show for him. But guys, there we have it. There is my personal list for the worst Championship 11 this season. Do you agree with my picks? Let me know down below. Do you think I've done anyone a little bit harshly on today's video, or do you think anyone from your club should have actually been put into this starting 11? Get your honourable mentions in the comments down below. Apart from that though guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So as always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Videos like this are just for a little bit of fun at the end of the day. Make sure to stick around and subscribe as well for some regular Championship content, and I'll see you all in the next one.